Okay. Well, give me one more second here, and we will be ready to go.
Now then, I think, can we share the screen if we're not the host? Can we still share a screen? Okay, because that's what Jesse and I think we'll be needing to do.
Absolutely.
Okay. Great. So I think hopefully you all can see mine.
Yep.
Cool. So if we can start the recording, Paula, that would be excellent. And lovely to see you all. Welcome again to the monthly research seminar. We have two exciting presentations led by different faculty members from the university this month, and have a very exciting whole series of sessions coming up, continuing into January, February, and into the spring as well. So welcome. A reminder, well, let's start with the agenda. So we have a couple of housekeeping items which I will cover. I'm in Haiti today, so in case there's any difficulty with connectivity on my side, Christy will be taking over and facilitating, and Christy and Jesse Pappas will be also doing the first half of the seminar, sharing some updates and resources and strategies related to doing online searches for literature and other materials that can help inform the work that we do around the world. So they will be taking the first part. The second half of the seminar will be led by Mike Recklin to share some updates and a fascinating case study of some of the research he's been doing and been involved with related to maple syrup and some of the tensions and also opportunities that can come up between practitioners and scientists and the different ways that they generate, approach, recognize, and use evidence. So that will be the second half. A couple of housekeeping requests, and we've been doing a really great job of this overall, I think, as a Zoom community around the world, but just to remind everyone and make sure that you find these settings and have them handy, is that if you're not talking, please do keep your microphone muted. We've got a little bit of background noise right now, so if you could double check, that would be great. However, it's also, a great opportunity in these seminars to put questions in the chat and or ask them verbally. So be sure that you also can unmute yourself. Feel free to raise your hand, or also feel free to chat on the side and jump into the conversation anytime as well, because we've built certainly time into the presentations for that. Sometimes we do get a great discussion going and we don't have time during the seminars to fully answer all of the questions, and so there's certainly an opportunity for follow-up via email. We'll be sending out the emails. I think you probably have access to all of the people who are presenting today, but just to make sure that if you want to follow up specifically on something, that you do get your questions answered. If you have some technical problems with Zoom that we can't figure out on this call, we do have Jonathan Wilkins and also Paula Smith is on the call today. We'll be able to help figure them out so that we make sure that certainly by the next time, if something isn't working today, we can sort that out. And then finally, just to note that we are recording this session. We'll put it on YouTube and one of our institutional university YouTube channels, and we'll be sending out the link as a follow-up as well. So for folks who can't join live, or if you want to go back and listen to something again, it will be available to you. Okay, I will hand over now to Christy Hand and then to Jesse, who will be leading the first half of the seminar. Thank you all both so much for doing this. I know you think a lot about resources in your own work, how to find what we need as a university, and so thank you for both sharing your perspectives. We'll be having short presentation first from Christy and then from Jesse, and then some time for discussion, I think, afterwards, but feel free to, you all can sort that however you think will work best. So
actually, Jesse's going first, and then I'll follow Jesse.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
All right. Hi, everybody. It's really good to see everyone's face this morning. I've got about 15 minutes to try to impart something useful to this group about finding resources that you're looking for online. And so I tried to think, well, what can I do in 15 minutes, hopefully with with a few minutes left over to ask folks in this group if they have any online research tips or sites that they would like to share with the group. So I'm just basically going to go through a set of sort of tools and tricks that have helped me over the years get a lot out of my Google and Google Scholar searches. And I gave this little presentation to the class of 2017 at the first course in India, and it seemed to go over pretty well. So I'm just going to show you some ways to refine your searches, to look for to look for resources in unique ways. And at the end of my little presentation, I'm going to show you a couple of online resources that I found very useful over the past few years. Okay, share my screen. Oh, by the way, I have this online research strategy sheet that I'm happy to share with everybody after the presentation. So please don't, I'm going to be going sort of fast here. So please don't feel like you have to take notes. Okay, everybody, you can see my screen, yeah? All right, so here we are, Google, right? How do we start our search? How do we find what we're looking for specifically, rather than finding a whole bunch of general stuff that isn't that useful to us? Well, what I'm going to start with is ways that you can sort of tell Google to do exactly what you want it to do, so you can get a better group of results. So one thing that I do a lot of the time, if say I'm looking for research on sustainability, obviously what's going to come up 90% is stuff on environmental sustainability. But both Dad and I are interested in other types of sustainability, personal sustainability, financial sustainability. So one thing that I do a lot is use the minus operator. And if you use the minus operator, this will return only results to you that are about sustainability, but aren't about environmental sustainability. And then one more little trick here is at the end of environment, right? So do we want to say environment, environments, environmental? Well, one way that we can tell Google to look for all different types of endings to the word environment and to exclude all of these is simply by putting the star at the end of environment. So this will now return everything about sustainability that has nothing to do with the environment. And you see we've gone from, we've cut about 50 million results out. Still a tremendous amount, but using this we can cut down our search in useful ways. Something else that I find useful that not a lot of people know about is using that star operator in the middle of a search phrase. So say I'm just at the beginning of some peace building work, and I'm just really trying to kind of wrap my mind around peace throughout the world. If I type in most peaceful and then the star operator in the world, what this is going to take me through is all different kinds of the most peaceful things in the world: religion, nation, country, safest place. So this I found is a nice way to really kind of get expansive before narrowing down, is to use that star operator in the middle of the world, the middle of the word. So one thing that I'm sure you use in your searches that is one of the most useful ways to cut down the number of responses you get and to really focus in on only what you're looking for is to put quotes around your search terms, right? So with participatory action research, I just saw I had about, I have almost 10 million results. Okay, and this is going to return everything with participatory, with action, and research in it. However, if I put it in quotes, then I'm specifically looking for participatory action research in the title. That phrase specifically, and I've only got about 500,000 results. That's a much more manageable return from Google, okay? But I would like to get even more specific and return files that are specifically useful to me. So there's two ways I like to do this. One is to tell Google which sites to look for, and the other is to tell Google what kind of files I'd like it to return. So one thing I use all the time is cite.edu, okay? This is gonna tell Google to only return results that are from university websites, okay? So you've got a pretty credible, usually pretty credible information. So now we're down to 109,000, okay? But So now I've got all these. This is good, but I don't need this YPAR hub and all these different things. What I'm really looking for is citable resources. So what you can do there is use the file type modifier and ask it to return only PDF. Okay, so now what I have is a list of really useful full text PDFs coming from university websites about participatory action research. And we're down to 27,000 results, and probably something that's really useful to me. In fact, I've actually looked specifically at this search combination before and found a lot of really interesting stuff. Something else I like to do is search for related sites. So, for instance, so the UN has a great website. It's huge and it has lots of information. But if I'm looking for other sites that are sort of like the UN site, right, that are about global politics and such, then I can type in related UN.org, and what this does is it will return to me a whole list of sites that are related to the UN. Okay. So some of them are actually going to be the UN, and then as you get a little bit farther down, we'll see there's lots of different sites that come up that are basically in relation to the UN, that are sort of circling around that website. I found a lot of success looking at related sites. Even like, if I'm looking for videos for different types of things, I can go to related to youtube.com, and then this will pull up a lot of different sites that are typically alternatives to looking to YouTube for social media kind of videos. Okay. Speaking of social media, something that I like to do is, these days you really have to sort of stay up on social media, and there's a lot of information coming out from different social media sources. So you can search Google specifically for social media outlets. So if I search for peace building and then put the @Twitter, what I find is a whole list of Twitter accounts, people, and they usually list the more popular ones toward the top, who are talking about peace building on Twitter. Now, of course, this isn't something we'd want to cite for a research paper, but this is really useful if we want to kind of put our finger on the pulse of peace building in the world right now. You all probably know this, but a way to really get to all of these settings and more is through the advanced search. And there used to be an advanced search button right on the top, and now you have to go to settings. Oops. Put this over. Settings and then advanced search. And you get lots of different options. One thing I found very useful here is searching by region, right? So if you want to find pages that are published in a particular region, we can scroll down, we can click Nepal, and then it will only return results that have been published in Nepal, okay? This is especially useful for us folks in the US who are looking for international resources, okay? All right, I know we're moving quick here, but I just want to move on and to talk about Google Scholar for just a couple of minutes. Google Scholar, I think, is probably one of the best resources on the web for doing internet research, right? Christy's going to talk next about our university resources for research, which is great, and those are useful. But it's just really wonderful to have this a program of this scale, a set of resources of this scale online that you can use anytime to find both abstract and full text resources for almost any kind of research that you'd like to do, okay? So again, it's deceptively simple when you start, but let's look at women's health. And by the way, another just a tip here that I wasn't going to talk about, but I use all the time is to use autocomplete to your benefit, right? So if I'm kind of thinking about what kind of topic on women's health would I like to dig into, I can sort of let Google tell me what's out there on women's health, right? Maybe I haven't talked about, the nurse practitioner in relation to women's health, or, the Women's Health Initiative Wiki, what's that? So there's a lot of ways that I usually sometimes let Google fill in for me, and then based on what it's telling me other people are researching, I'll go to those areas and find some really interesting research. Oops. Okay, so now we have documents on women's health, and I know you've been here before, but I just really want to show you this little bar down here at the bottom. If you're not using this all the time, then you're really, really missing out. But one thing that's really cool is you can just click this and it'll give you the perfectly formatted citation, right? So that's the site for this article in these different styles. That's really useful. But cited by and related articles, these are just windfalls of great information, right? So we're talking about benefits of estrogen, progesterone, and healthy menopausal women. Okay, that's just the first thing that popped up. So I can look, it's been cited by 12,681 articles. So I can click there, and these are all of the articles that have cited this particular piece of research. So when I find an article that is really interesting to me, I spend quite a bit of time going through the cited by and find lots of different articles that are relevant to this area of research. And another way to do that is to look at related articles. Okay, so not only does Google tell you what articles have cited the piece of research you're looking at, but also it basically pulls all different types of articles that are related to it. And of course, you can go down a rabbit hole by looking at, okay, well, this was interesting. I'm interested in postmenopausal hormone therapy. So now I can go to related articles of this one. And it's, sometimes you find yourself going pretty far down the rabbit hole, but because Google Scholar has such a wealth of resources and of published, peer-reviewed journal publications now, I find a lot of times that I don't even go to my academic library anymore, because pretty much everything at that library, except for some full text, is available through Google Scholar if you know where to look. Okay, now I just have a couple more minutes, and I want to show you some resources that I've found really useful on the web. Okay, some of you have seen this before, and those of you who've been in my class have used it. This is an incredible resource. This is the University of Kansas Community Toolbox. Okay, they call it Tools to Change Our World. And it is all about community work, empowerment, community research. And there are 46 chapters about all types of community models and community strategies, plans, getting help from volunteers, leadership. I mean, and each of these chapters, each of these 48 chapters contains a tremendous amount of research within itself. So here's the Assessing Community Needs chapter. Assessing Community Needs has 24 different sections, all of these different really useful research strategies. You want to know how to do a SWOT analysis, to conduct surveys, how to do focus groups, this is where you should come, okay? University of Kansas Community Toolbox. Again, this is on my research sheet if you're interested. And then just very briefly, a couple of things that I've found, 2 lists that have been useful to me. And again, these are also on my sheet. This online PhD org, which is like basically resources for online PhD programs, they have this nice list of 105 indispensable resources for academic research. Most of these have a lot of free resources. Some of them don't have as many. And then the one I found useful over the last few years is a list of 100 search engines for academic research. Just by going through here and finding things that I really didn't realize were even there. Did you know that you can go and search the National Archives from your computer? I mean, there's just a tremendous number of resources that are out there for free now. The internet has really facilitated research in that way. So, and the very last thing I'd like to say that I've come upon when I look at internet research tips in various different places is to set a time limit for yourself when you're doing research in a specific area. I find myself going down rabbit holes all the time, and all of a sudden an hour is gone, and I've learned something interesting, but not something that's on topic. So really setting like a 10 or 15 minute timer, and once you've gone through a specific set of resources or a specific avenue for looking at that topic, stop, shift topics, try another strategy, and go down a different path. I think you'll find that you find much more broad set of resources, and your research ends up being a lot more diverse if you set time limits and reset and shift direction every now and then. Okay, that's all. Christy, over to you with university-specific academic resources. I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jesse. I've got a little bit of an echo here. Okay, thanks a lot, Jesse. You really presented a lot of good resources, and it goes so fast. I hope all of you will have a chance to really dig into the different options in the sheet that Jesse will find, because I think that's where, both for his presentation and mine, that's where the value is going to come in, when you have a chance to just play around with it yourself. So a little bit of background on our institutional online database. We've done a lot of searching to try to find the perfect one, and realized that the perfect one just isn't there. We've tried databases like Cengage, EBSCO, and one of the main issues we've found is lack of resources for the broad nature of research that we need and of disciplines, and also the lack of full text articles. So what we have now is JSTOR, and Rosie, I think you're on the call, you did a great job doing some research for us, and so that we could find something that was working a little bit better. And I think with her research, we found something with JSTOR that is at least better than our last database. So I'd like to go share my screen and go to JSTOR right here. Let me see if I can move my, whoops. Okay, and this is something that I will have to run through quickly as well, but hopefully you'll have time on your own to be able to do the research. Now, I'm in this, I'm going to log in so you can see how you would log in. Alumni and current students, all of our faculty and staff have access to this, to our institutional account. So what you would do, and this you might want to write down, is your username is FutureGen, so FUTUREGEN, and the password, you can't see it here, but it's researcher, RESEARCHER, and this will get you into our JSTOR database. Now, one thing that JSTOR is a really powerful online digital library. We have purchased 3 collections, and this won't mean a lot to you, but it will show you why you may be able to find some things and more. We've purchased a 3 database, Arts and Sciences 10 collection, Arts and Sciences 12 collection, and Sustainability. When Rosie was doing the research, she found that this was this gave us the most journals and the most available research in our discipline areas. Okay, I am going to log in. Now, you could search from this screen right here, but just like Jesse talked about the advanced search, I'm going to click on advanced search. If you have questions, now I don't have a lot of time either, but if you interrupt me if you have a specific question. I'm going to use the search criteria community change. And there's one thing here I just want to throw out a phrase that will probably mean nothing, but it's Boolean operators. And Boolean refers to 3 terms, and, or, and not. And these are important terms when you're doing your online research. So here I have community change, and you'll notice that it's full text. You can also do a search with author, item, title, abstract, caption. I'm going to do that, and you'll see how many search results you get. 195,000. Okay, obviously that's a lot, so we'll need to narrow that. I'm going to go back to advanced search, community change. Okay, I'm going to use the Boolean criteria here, and I'm going to put in conservation. Okay, just throw out. Now, do you think I'm going to end up with more than 195,000 with this, or fewer? Does someone throw out an answer? You guys are shy. Okay, with the and criteria, I will end up with fewer because I'm narrowing my search. This means that this search is in all the journals, and actually there are books here too, and different articles that have community change and conservation in the theme. So if I search here, I will end up with 36,000. And so you can see, let's see, if I I need to get my, oh, okay. So I'm not gonna scroll down to all the 36,000. Let me go back to my advanced search. Community change. Now, or, if I put in or conservation, I'll end up with more, because this means that it searches everything that has community change in it or conservation. So I'll do a search. And I also want to draw your attention up here. This is a way that you can enter in these with the Boolean operator here, or without going into the advanced search. You use the parentheses here, put community change in parentheses, your operator or here. Again, you could do and then conservation. This will do the same thing. All right, I'm going to go back. And notice you had 275,000 there, so you ended up with more with the or. Okay. I'm going to use community change again. Now you can probably guess what the next one is. Not. Okay, so I want to look for community change, but I'm not interested in conservation. And so I'm going to say not conservation, and I'll search for that. So this gives me everything about community change, but it doesn't include the topic of conservation. And you can see I have 159,000. All right, now I'm going to go back here and show you some more ways to narrow results. Let's go back to community change. And again, this is something really important for you to just play around with. Take some time to play around with it so you're ready when you need to do specific work, research. Okay, and conservation, let's go back to that. So everything that has to do with community change and conservation. Now I want to narrow it further. So I am interested in just articles. I'm interested in something that's more recent. So I'll put 2010 here to 2017. Now notice here, there's also the possibility of languages. I'm going to leave it on, I'm not going to narrow this, but this is something that you may also be interested in. There's specific languages that you can limit it to. Okay, I think that's now, notice down here, you also have journals. I'm not going to click any, but these are all the potential journals in the content areas that you can specify. Okay, let me go ahead and do my search with the criteria. I have the and, so it has to do with conservation and community change articles within that date range. I'll do my search. I have 5,000, so that's a little more manageable. Now let's see what I can do with this. I can download, let's see which one I like. Oh, Mike is here. Okay. Mike, do you like bird diversity and forest? Okay. These have to do with Mike's topic. I should actually look for maple sap. Okay, I'm going to do, to try to download the PDF. Okay, so there I have the article. I found the article, Classification of Climate Change-Induced Stresses on Biological Diversity. I'm going to go back here. I want to cite this item. Now this is really important because we emphasize the importance of citing your sources. So cite this item. Notice that you have the citation given to you here in all the different formats, MLA, APA, Chicago. This is really convenient because citations can be tricky, and so it's nice to have it given to you. All right, this, my last thing here that I want to show you, add to my lists. Now, in order to add to your list, you have to set up your own account within the institutional account. So I'm just going to show that this, you would go in and establish your own account. after you're logged into our account. Notice here that you have access provided by Future Generations Graduate School so that you know you're in the institutional account. Here, I'm just going to sign up with my Google right here. And so this shows, in addition to being access provided by Future Generations, it shows my name up here. So that's something where you can then save your lists and save your searches. So notice here, I've added one item here. Oh, this was from before. Okay, I would need to go back and add the one that I just found. So if I do that, I can add this to my lists and add to list. Okay, create a new list. Okay, I want to add to that list. So I've successfully added it. And so now I have, okay, should have 2 articles there. All right, I am going to close there to give enough time for Mike, but I would encourage you to get into JSTOR and to look around, to practice, and to use this. Again, this is open for our alumni and our current students, our faculty and staff. So please use this resource, and happy researching. Okay, I will stop my share and turn it over to you, Mike. Let me.
Okay, now somewhere there's a slide presentation I put on your desk, so we gotta.
Yeah,
yeah. We gotta get to that somehow.
Okay.
And while you all are making that transition, thank you so much, both Christy and Jesse. And we've had a good little parallel set of chats on the side. So maybe if you haven't been paying attention to the chat, everyone just take a look. There's a question about whether you can filter by country, and we can. And then also this standardization of citation formats within the university. We do come from multiple different disciplines. We're also writing for different audiences. And so, you know, I think we haven't, although I've also heard that if you need a default, that we're going with the Chicago Manual of Style. So feel free to correct me, or perhaps we'll come up with a different standard as we continue to expand and grow. But that's where we are. So thank you all again. If anyone wants to add a comment or a question at this point, please feel free.
Okay, how do you? Okay, yeah, that's a good point. You can narrow by country by just adding the country into as an additional search criterion. Okay, Mike, do you want to go through it like this, or should I?
I'd like you to expand it. So
expand
it's,
it.
expanding
Okay.
the full screen.
Okay, so slideshow.
There we go.
From
Okay.
the beginning. So Mike, why don't you sit here?
And you drive, because it's your computer. I don't want to screw things up.
Okay.
You can stay there. We're just sharing the screen here.
Okay.
Stay right there. Well, greetings, all of you out there. I'm not exactly sure how I got invited to this. I'm invited to all of them, but I have not participated. But somehow Micah and I were chatting, and this instance that I was involved with came up. And so I put together a little program to was kind of going through, and the question is, what's research, okay? And are you doing research, and what's defined as research? And so we'll just go through this little example of a controversy to that nature that I've been involved with. And I started, let's see, this is what I'm supposed to do, so let's read and see if I do it. Field workers in many sectors are often trying new things, running informal experiments, or exploring their working environment. The question is, when does that aha moment of a field constitute a replicable, scientifically sound discovery? Me, Mike Recklin, will guide us through an example of when a discovery by a maple syrup producer led to a nationally aired conflict with a prominent research scientist, and how knowledge generated in both spheres can work together in the pursuit of progress. Okay, so basically we're going to talk about here. Let's keep moving. I want Christy to drive.
Yeah, and obviously I'm not. How do I? Hey, Mike, I'm having trouble.
Just hit the button. Just hit
Oh,
your
there we go.
down arrow button.
Hitting it hard enough. Okay.
So for those of you who live in warm climates and don't know anything about maple syrup, I feel very sorry for you. But it's something we do in the Northeast, something we do in West Virginia in the springtime. And for a little bit of background, we take maple trees and we drill holes in them. And up on the upper right-hand corner is my daughter doing this, and pound a little spout into that tree. And either with tubing or with buckets, we collect the sap. Okay, so this is background. That's what we're involved with. And people are doing this all over the northeastern part of the United States. It's an income generator, okay? Happens only in the springtime. People make money by boiling that sap down and making it into a syrup. Next. So the sap drips out, nice clear liquid into your bucket, and you then take it into a sugar house, and you boil it and boil it and boil it, and you end up with a sweet, delicious syrup, which is on the bottom corner here. Some is light and some is dark, and we could talk about that for the next 3 hours. But that's kind of the end product here. And I work right now with the producers, syrup producers in West Virginia. That's one of my retirement occupations here. Okay, next. In order for this to happen, you need, forget the dollar sign there. I have no idea why I did that. You need cold nights followed by warm days. So if we take a look at the 2016 sap season in Davis, West Virginia, when we had on the 6th of March, we had a 28-degree night followed by a 34-degree day. Cold night above freezing. The sap is going to flow out of that spigot. Okay. The next day, 25-degree night, 59-degree day. Good sap flow day. We're going to get more sap flow. Then we went through a period of 35, it didn't freeze. 34, it didn't freeze. 52, okay, we went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, if I'm counting right, days in which we had no freezing nights to initiate that sap flow. Plenty of warm days, but no freezing nights. Followed by the 19th, we were back in business, 27 and 35.
Fahrenheit.
This is all Fahrenheit, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Christy. Keep us in here. Okay, next. All right, so this is a picture of yeast cells, basically. And anytime it's above freezing, let's go back to that last one just for a bit. Anytime it's above freezing, microorganisms grow in your tubes, they grow in your buckets, they grow in your holes you drilled. And when it gets warmer, 64, 71, 70, 57, 55, 55, those yeast cells, microorganism cells, grow faster and faster. They're temperature dependent. And when you have multiple days of no freezing and warm days during the daytime, warm temperatures during the daytime, it basically plugs up these holes through which the sap is supposed to flow and shuts down the operation. And in West Virginia, this is a problem for us because with our climate change that we're seeing more of these warm periods during the normally cold period of the year that's shutting down our industry. So let's move forward.
Past,
yeah. Okay. So this is a controversy. Okay, we're going to talk about a controversy. We're going to talk about what constitutes and does not constitute research. This is Brandon Daniels. Brandon is a producer. He's a guy who's out there putting up tubing, tapping trees, making maple syrup. And he is one side of this controversy. Next. Okay. And he initiated this controversy on a public forum called the Maple Trader. And we'll see what post he made on the Maple Trader, and then we'll see what kind of response he got. And this is a national forum that people respond, not national, northeastern, I guess. People respond to the various posts. So let's see what Brandon put on here. And we're not going to read all these posts because there are 37 of them. It would take too much time. But we're being selective, okay? And he says, okay, I had 5 producers participate in a retapping research experiment during the 2017 season, okay? And what he had them do is he had them after that warm period, all right? He had them, and it should be 2016, well, actually it's 2070. My data was wrong. So this is 2000. This was last year, okay, last winter. What he had them do is he had them take their spiles out of the tree and go deeper, tap deeper, drill deeper in the tree and put the spiles back in. And he says, I know Dr. Perkins, who moderates this forum, and I will disagree on retapping. But with the results we seen, I think this will be huge going forward. Without presenting all the information, I will put results from one producer on here. No one hit it out of the park down south due to one of the warmest seasons on record, but retapping sure made a big difference. See the results. So he's saying, I did an experiment, I did some research, and look at my results. By retapping, I was able to keep my trees active in the field. Okay, next slide.
Dr. Mike Reichland.
Yeah, he's not too much of a speller, but I got involved with it because I encouraged the producers to do experiments and to learn about their environment. So there I was. All right, so now Dr. Perkins is from the University of Vermont's Proctor Maple Research Center. He's not a field producer. He's the academic researcher associated with the university. And this is the preeminent maple research center in this country. These are the guys who are really the ivory tower guys out there knowing how to do this research. Let's see what Tim has to say. All right, so Tim says, in terms of the original message you conveyed, several posters have noted the same issues that I had. Chief among these is that there was really no adequate control for comparison purposes. When we do research, the first thing we do is to make sure we have strong controls, okay? Please don't misunderstand me. I think the goal of your project was interesting and worthy of study, and that the results are interesting, but I object to calling this work research. I don't place a lot of value on it for decision-making purposes. Unfortunately, good research is neither easy nor cheap. So what Tim is saying is, look, what you did was interesting, but that does not constitute research, okay? We do research, not practitioners. Next. Then there's this guy. Everybody's got a handle on this. Everybody's got a name made up, okay? So Buckeye Gold comes in and says, I have to defend Brandon, who's called West Virginia Mapler. Here a bit, Dr. Kim. Just reading the red. I believe he did do research, but you are correcting saying that incorrect. He did not design a scientific study. Okay. On a personal scale, he was researching what he could by the means available to him. Even if all he'd done was read your published works, he was researching. This is kind of a pet peeve of mine, and that I got dug at for many years by university research designers. I've done a lot of these are West Virginia guys. I've done a lot of my own research. Maybe I should say trial and error. And although I did not meet the standards of scientific design, I was able to develop techniques that completely changed the approach to production for my line of work. And I was recognized nationally by my peers, although my work was never accepted well by university level researchers. But they were sure liked using me for ideas. They would design studies around what I was doing and ask for huge grants to research what I was already applying in production. I, for one, can say he can call it research. All right, so what do we got? We got a controversy here, right? Is this research? Is this not research? Buckeye Gold is saying, hold it. I think it was. He was exploring his environment. He was coming up with things. He was moving the field forward, even though it didn't, quote, be scientific research. Interesting. Okay, next. This led to 37 posts on this blog. Okay, we refer to this as a classic pissing match. All right, this is two dogs on a post, each one out there, staking out his territory. There was the researcher, the Proctor guy saying, no, research is my territory. And there was Brandon saying, no, research is my territory, okay? And so it went on for a number of months, got lots of people involved in it. So the question is, what's research? Let's go on and take a look at the next. Okay. And I think, as I've thought about this, I think that Tim was wrong. Okay. I think that what Brandon was doing, we would call, in borrowing from the social science side of the research equation, would be action research. Okay. And this is defined as either research initiated to solve an immediate problem, he had that, or a reflective process of progressive problem solving led by individuals working with others in teams or as part of a community of practice. Brandon was a community of practice. He had other producers out there doing this to improve the way they address issues and solve problems. All right. And Paolo is somebody that we quote often in our fields here. So to me, this would be action research. Now, is it scientific research? All right. And so then I looked up I didn't put it in here. I looked up the 6 steps of the scientific method. Okay. And they talk about formulating a question, doing research into that question, forming a hypothesis, gathering data to prove or disprove hypothesis, making it evidence-based decision-making decision at the end of the process. 6 steps there. Doesn't talk anything about controls. It doesn't talk anything about, science. But that's the kind of our standard high school scientific method. I think Tim was confusing research with experiment. Do we say, did Brandon do an experiment? Well, to me, no, he did not, because an experiment does have a set control, and that's correct. Okay, so that we can compare the innovation or the change against an unchanged environment and look for statistically valid differences through our measurements. So to me, Brandon was doing research. He wasn't doing an experiment. Tim was incorrect by saying this is not research. Okay, he would have been correct if he said this is not an experiment. But Brandon was working with a community of practice. He was addressing and solving, and so was Buckeye Gold out there, problems. But you can start to see that conflict between the classic researcher and the field practitioner, looking for answers, experimenting, playing with things, and coming up with new ideas out of that. Next slide. And what's most interesting to me is Tim then turned around and put in a grant to the federal government, part of which is to determine if significant differences exist in the over yields of trees tapped early in the production season with or without reaming, which he means by retapping or digging. So Tim turned this debate or pissing match on the internet into a grant application and got $350,000 to go out and try to figure out whether what Brandon saw was real. Okay, now each of these has their own role, but I think undervaluing the role of practitioner experiments does not do us well. It certainly wouldn't have done Tim well. It'd have been $350,000 out for his research institute had not he got into this national debate with the producer in West Virginia who was doing something and said, hey, look at this, man, this is really cool. And I think in our fields, in the development field, I will argue that most of what we're doing is action research. We're doing things and there are methodologies that it's not non-scientific and it's not non-rigorous, and we have to honor that and keep to those methods and theories that back up action research. But I think that I just thought it was interesting, and obviously so did Micah, because I told her about this and she asked me to do this. So anyhow, that's quick and short. If anybody has any questions or wants to order any maple syrup, let me know. Okay.
Great. Thank you so much, Mike, for laying that out. And I think it's really pertinent for us as a university as well, because I think we struggle or we're working through a lot of this terminology as well, and where does our niche fit, and are we using terms consistently, and what do we actually think is important and valuable for us, and then what can we contribute to the larger field. Dan Robison has a comment in the chat window saying that he feels that the practitioner in your example here was experimenting, but that it wasn't a scientific experiment, but that it yielded answers that he needed as a practitioner to to improve his work and keep moving forward. So I don't know if you have any response to that, Mike, and then we'll see what others want to add as well.
In my mind, I've thought this through, he was gathering data, he was analyzing data. He did not have a control. So to me, I would say that was not an experiment, but I would definitely say, in my mind, it was scientific. If he was just making observations, I'm not a numbers guy, but he was out there gathering numbers and analyzing those numbers, conducting a series of field studies, not an experiment, but field studies. And much of our environmental research is not an experiment. We'd love to, experiment on climate change if we had another Earth that we could sit out there and just not change the climate on. But much of what we legitimately call research, I believe, and scientific research is just not an experiment. So that's where I kind of make the determination, make the cut.
Great. And Kelly also asked Mike if some of this research money that the university ended up getting for this idea in some way went back to the producer and kind of closed that loop. And so we're starting a little chat dialogue about that. I don't know if you know anything about what happened next.
I do. And the answer is no. That it's never gonna leave the University of Vermont. Yeah, which is not uncommon with research funding.
The ethical thing would be for him to join. He'd say, "Look, this is interesting. Let's do it. Let's set this up and with some producers and spread the benefits." That would be the ethical thing.
Sounds like a good idea, but I know it's not going to happen.
Well, I think that this is what Future Generations is trying to do with our research. This is Daniel speaking. We're trying to create a partnership around the world with the people at the community level and the scientists, and we believe that this participatory approach, and Jesse was giving us a number earlier in this presentation on participatory approach. We're working out methods, and that process started a year ago when Micah took over the research directorship. We're making some changes in our research program, but our mission is exactly, Mike, to take an idea such as your Brandon and to move that into the form of rigorous knowledge. I think Brandon did do research, but we need to move it to the level of rigorous knowledge, and we don't want to do what the University of Vermont is doing, and not keeping Brandon as a researcher. I think that we could get a very interesting sample size if we had 50 Brandons experimenting in different ways. And that's what Future Generations is in the process of developing. And we've got an exciting niche as a university. So this is a perfect example, beginning with the technical presentations from Jesse, and Christy's tying us into the literature, and Mike, you're the case study. I really love this session.
And let me say that to put another feather in Future Generations' hat, Future Generations is implementing what Daniel just said in West Virginia as the organizing force between the Southern Syrup Research Symposium next September, bringing together practitioners and the top researchers in the country to discuss how that type of a linkage can be made.
Other comments or questions? Anthony had put a comment a little further up in the chat saying that his perspective was that as long as you produce new knowledge or improve a practice, that would fall under, or it could fall under, a broad definition of research.
Juan, can you speak to the group about what you're saying in the chat about descriptive research?
If you allowed me, I think there's many types of research. It could be a baseline survey. That's a kind of description of a status, of situations, of an area, of a community, of the country. It's fully a kind of descriptive. It has no, control group at all. That's also a kind of research which is very important, and normally it's carried out at the beginning of a beginning of a project, for example, before an intervention. I think, for example, we can describe, for example, a climate situation at this time, and over time we describe it another time, and change when can be seen later. So it's fully descriptive research type. Similarly, I think people can take photos of a forest, of a landscape, and after a year and another year, people keep taking photographs, and then the people compare the changes. That is fully descriptive research, and that's okay. It's not experiment. I think experiment. It's also possible to do a kind of research within a community. For example, I think, for example, I've been assisting a master student in doing a research. She implement a new teaching approach with interactive techniques, and then she has another control group with a traditional teaching method, and then she has a comparisons between a control group and another group with a treatment, and then she measure at the beginning of the school year and then at the end of school year the times of, for example, engagement of the teachers and engagement of the students with the groups, and she record times, active times of the teachers, of the students, and she can isolate the influence of the of the new teaching method to the participations of the students. So that's also a kind of community research to be conducted by teachers, and that's what exactly I'd like to recommend. English teachers in Mekong Delta as a kind of research design. So when I look at example given here, I think it's quite possible to do a lot of research in the communities. Another non-experimental research in the community, I think could be, for example, when I did a community an agricultural extension with chicken raising. Normally in Vietnam's communities, people raise something like 20 or 10 chickens in their yard and free-ranging. Why? They cannot raise because there's some diseases, and there's no vaccinations there. People have no access to vaccinations. They have because the vaccines are kept under certain low temperatures. So to assist community to raise more chicken, for example, to the levels of 100 chicken, I introduce kind of vaccination for small chickens, for small chicks. And then I also introduce a new food, like there's a so-called the giant tea, a very rich in protein leaves, crops. And then people start introduce, that's like a treatment. So before we have descriptions of the community, now, and then later we have another treatment like vaccinations, like additional rich protein crops. So people improve their, chicken raising, farming practices, and they will be able to raise 100 chickens, and they improve their income. So that's a kind of incomplete research design.
Yeah.
So
Thank you, Kwong. Thank you so much for that description, and sounds like there's a lot more to talk about there as well. So thank you. There's a comment from Musafiri about invention research and how it applies to academic research, like if you're making new discoveries and how that applies for research and practice. I don't know if Mike or if anyone else would like to comment specifically on that, and I think we need to close the formal seminar. If anyone wants to stay on for a few minutes, you're more than welcome to. But I just want to give Mike in particular a chance to comment either on what Kwong said or on Musafiri's comment before we close. Thank you.
My only comment on the discussion here that I think has been great is that there are many, many different forms, methodologies of doing research. Okay, experiment being one of them, and they're all valid in their own fields, and they all have rigor associated with them if they're done correctly.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, everyone, very, very much. This has been a great session. Continues to move us forward as a research community, and it's really important and rich to have the diversity of perspectives and experiences from around the world. So thank you all. Thank you in particular to our presenters again. Thank you, Mike, for being here. Thanks to everyone. And we'll be sending a follow-up email with Jesse's tip sheet with PDF of the slides, link to the recording. All of that will be coming soon. And feel free to follow up by email as well. So see you next month and talk to you soon. Have a great rest of the day.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.